Hello and welcome to the fourth installment in this series of Idiodextrous interviews. Fiona Sunderland plays more instruments than I can count. Once you've had the pleasure of meeting Fiona, this makes perfect sense. She's on an epic quest to know everything. But that knowledge isn't just for its own sake. It's curiosity motivated by empathy. Her astounding breadth of instrumental knowledge helps her to understand what each member of the orchestra is dealing with, and that also makes her a great conductor. I'm talking to Fiona because although she now plays left-handed double basses, electric basses and guitars, there was a time when she played all of those instruments upside down and backwards. In particular, I was interested to ask Fiona to compare playing idiodextrously on the double bass with playing on a left-handed instrument. And she has some very interesting things to say about that. Though I have no doubt that there are others, both past and present, Fiona's the first person who I've spoken to that's played idiodextrously in an orchestral setting. And we talk about what it's like to be the odd one out in a double bass section. Music is a central part of Fiona's life, but it's just one of the main storylines on her epic quest for knowledge. At the time of recording this interview, Fiona is in her fourth year of a PhD in biomedical engineering at the University of Southampton, working on next-generation digital design techniques for personalizing prosthetic limbs. As well as these two big passions, Fiona takes on plenty of side quests along the way too. We talk about how her handedness shows up in some of them, like martial arts, sports, and cutting out right-handed using left-handed scissors. You might have already guessed that our conversation goes to a lot of places, but Fiona has a remarkable ability to tie it all back together. If you would like to experience the full open world adventure, you can check out our entire conversation on Patreon via the link in the video description. In the meantime, here are some highlights from my Idiodextrous interview with Fiona Sunderland. Which section in the orchestra is, objectively speaking, the best, and why is it the double basses?
Correct. Because I think what's interesting about the double bass is I find it in the string orchestra and the concert band stuff, like all the melodies there, the counter melody, the harmony, it's all there. But then you put the bass and it adds that real depth to the sound, resonance and deepness to it, and violins are shit.
Do you feel like there's also like a bit of kind of camaraderie there because you're carrying around these massive instruments? Is that somehow bonding? Do you find an affinity with other bass players?
The carrying it around and the experience of that's like, yeah, I get you. So I was in the junior concert band and I had a friend, and the conductor of the junior concert band is a bassist. So I think for one rehearsal, he brought the bass to play along. I don't know if you've played in concert bands much, but often you get in the lower ones, you don't get the bass instruments because people that play bari sax aren't usually beginner sax players. People that play bass clarinet aren't beginner clarinetists. So all the bass instruments are quite often missing. And if you get a bassoonist, they put them in the upper one because you got a bassoonist somewhere. But yeah, so he was playing it once in rehearsal. In the end, my friends were like, let's go up and ask him about it. So we asked a load of questions about it, and we ended up deciding we'd learn to play bass guitar. So that was the end of year 8. Forget about like quality of basses and whatnot. I have.
Quality of string color through the roof. Wow. Okay, this is a lefty, strung lefty. 5-string, pink, red, yellow, green, and is that blue on the G string?
Yeah. I cover up the flash. I have the flashiness to cover up lack of skill. Then I think is it year 10 or year 11? I think it's year 11. I found out double bass had the same strings as bass guitar. I'm like, well, this is it's not starting from the beginning. I might as well play it, is my philosophy. So what's that? 2014, I managed to get my parents to get me one for Christmas, but obviously I got a right hand. But then in classical stuff like Beethoven stuff, it goes down to a low C. So I really wanted a 5-string so I'd be able to play all those things, especially because I could do it from my bass guitar, but not being able to play it there was annoying. Where am I going to get a 5-string left-handed double bass? But Tommen do left-handed double basses. They do 5-string double basses. I sent an email just wondering. They emailed me back saying, oh, right, so we're through that period. Yeah, we can absolutely do this. And I was like, And I saw someone else in the group posted their 5-string left-handed bass from Tommen. I think I just commented like, thanks to me. So my parents figured out quite quickly that I was left-handed. I had a little kit of left-handed, stuff to scissors, and I can't remember what else was in it. It was like 4-year-olds. So I went to school. I wrote backwards a lot. I'm actually dyslexic as well, so that may have actually been more part of that. My cousin's left-handed, and my dad's side of the family's Jewish. He has horrible handwriting, and the second he went to Hebrew school, he had the most beautiful Hebrew script.
Because he was writing from right to left.
Yeah, and compared to everyone else where they're writing against themselves, I actually, interestingly, despite the fact I'd been given left-handed scissors from a young age, I cut out of my right hand. And I got used to doing it with left-handed scissors as well, because I had left-handed scissors. So I like to cut out of my right hand using left-handed scissors. I think I've gotten better these days. But yeah, for some reason, I just can't cut out well with my left hand. I can cut enough to cut my nails. It's fine. But yeah, I'm not great at cutting out, to be honest. It's not a skill of mine. Tennis was an interesting one. Because I switched for whether I play left-handed or right-handed. I tried to do that when I started playing badminton at school in year 7, and the teacher said, "No, you're not allowed to swap hands. You can't just swap which hand you do that." I'm like, why not? I don't think there's a rule against it. If I'm playing table tennis, I can do both a paddle. I'm not particularly good, but I can play equally badly with both hands. So I can do a paddle in each hand. I did notice, like, I happen to eat crisps with my right hand, so I deliberately made the switch to do that with my left hand, because I thought, how could I?
So you mentioned that a couple of times, almost like this principle. Is there some kind of part of you that feels identified with the left-handedness?
Yeah, it's like I hate that things can't just be adapted, and so I make a very specific thing that I won't adapt for no reason. Because it's not even like it's a 0.1% of the population. I could understand a bit more. It's 10% of the population. It's not unrealistic to expect that. So I try and very aggressively do things left-handed, because I'm not changing for anyone. My parents are not musicians, but my mum did learn guitar when she was young, and there was a guitar in my house, so I had that I'd play on. And I remember I always picked it up, and I could never remember which way is the left-handed way to play it. So but I couldn't play it. I was just strumming randomly. That was silly, because I was obviously playing left-handed out of principle. So when I first properly picked it up in end of year 8, so I was 13, I remember being insistent I'd get a left-handed one. And at that point, I can remember which way the left-handed one is. Interestingly, it's if I were to play it upside down, I feel like my right hand would know what to do, because it's my left hand that feels wrong that way up.
Your first bass was not
my first
a left-handed bass.
No, it was a right-handed one. I got a Gear for Music bass, the white one. I decided that the only feasible way is I had to get a right-handed one, and I'll just play upside down. And I think it's very out of principle, because I think my parents did go, "You're left-handed, it's okay, you can have this left-handed set." I was very much I'm going to do it the left. I'm going to be awkward. I'm going to demand to be awkward so that everyone can. If all the left-handed people actually played left-handed, it would be much easier for all the left-handed people to get stuff, I'd like to think.
So you were there representing from a young age, hoping to bring about change in the world. Were you in a bass section with other double basses?
Yeah, so in my first year when I was playing in the symphony orchestra, there were 4 of us. They were all on 4 strings, right-handed. And then we also, for concerts, we had this guy come play with us. But he was, level that he could do paid gigs sort of thing. He said, "Have you considered stringing the bass left-handed?" And I said, "I had, but I've looked up and the sound post wouldn't be on the right side." And he said, "Yeah, that would be the problem." So that's why I never restrung it, because I didn't know enough about it. I think you'd also have to do something to the nut. But yeah, I never restrung it, because I was under the impression the sound post would be on the wrong side and it wouldn't sound good. One day, my tailpiece string broke, and Tommen, the German music store, they do left-handed double basses. So I said, I'd really like a left-handed one. Because what I found that with the strings backwards, I can't do all the bowings the same. Now I can. Now I'm just a mirror image of them, but I can still do up bows and down bows. But sometimes I could do the same bowing, but sometimes it just didn't make sense because the string was the other direction. So
Right.
I couldn't play all the correct bowings and style quite the same. So then I went to Tom and I said goodbye to my white double bass. I now fit in aesthetically with the rest of the orchestra. So that's where I got a left-handed bass. Definitely improved then with my playing, certainly in an orchestral style. It took me a little adapt to playing left-handed, but not too long because the odds. I went to go from A to D and went the wrong string. But I think it improved my playing going onto an actual left-handed one. I think it's the ergonomics of it. I think it's also the fact it's a better bass, probably.
Yeah. A higher quality instrument.
Yeah, I think the fact I kind of then didn't have an excuse to go, oh, I can't do the bowings and stuff. I actually put a bit more of an effort to try. Just when you're thinking about it, when it's upright, it doesn't feel quite as backwards. I noticed when I went back to bass guitar, my muscle memory would suddenly play the wrong way, even though I know that way around. But when you're not used to playing it, and I didn't have the muscle memory there, I found the fact it's upright, it didn't feel quite as backwards. It's not 180 degrees wrong, it's only 90 degrees wrong. But yeah, so it doesn't feel wrong when you're playing ups because it works fine. It's just the being used to it. It's the same as playing like a cello has its strings in fifths, not fourths. It's not wrong. It's just a different tuning. So I kind of saw it more as just a different tuning. Yeah, no, I did. When I first started uni, I got a lot of those comments because obviously I hadn't learned properly either, so I wasn't very good at first year. They were very concerned about me joining, even though they didn't have. They were like, we're not sure, and they were keen, like, have you not tried playing right-handed and doing like that? And as I mentioned, that guy that said he could try and restring it for me, and there are a few comments like that. I think also the fact it was white wasn't appreciated by everyone. But yeah, there were a lot of people that don't like the playing left hand. It's like, why do you though? Yeah, they didn't like me playing backwards in the orchestra. We had a conductor that was like, I'm not sure. I was like, I can play if I switched hands, I could play cello reasonably well because she was a cellist. And I'm like, I'm not just switching to play right, because everyone's like, why do you play left-handed? It's because I learned bass guitar left-handed, and I wasn't going to switch. Also, it doesn't. I understand a bit of the violins your elbow each other, but on double bass, it doesn't. You sing far apart anyway. It does get in the way occasionally, but we angle it right. Because it used to be I'd try and be on the left, but actually when you're up bow all the way, it's actually more difficult. I sometimes find me being on the right is easier, and just angling it correctly. It depends. We'd ideally be in a line, but it depends on the space, because we're in a concert hall. The double bass are the ones getting shafted a bit. We did have one concert and the president found out after. He's like, I'm really sorry that they didn't like me, that bass section. They had the four of them in a row and then me behind. So in the concert hall on the uni, we often, stagger it maybe 4 and 2, depending how we do it. I quite like having a stand on my own just because I like having the music close to my face and find it easier.
So when you say it's easier or you prefer to be on the right, does that mean that your colleague is on your left? Yeah,
on my left. So if they're sharing a stand with me, if they're not sharing a stand with me, it doesn't really matter because we have enough of a gap that it shouldn't matter, and that's usually what happens. I think I found that's because I have a bit more control that way, I guess. Whereas when you hit something that way, you don't, like, I've hit other people's stands just in general when we've been packed too tight.
Right.
Yeah, and also you can turn a bit, but I just find it easier to do that way. I'm not sure quite why that works out, but yeah, I find pitsing, it's less obvious. In an orchestra, when you're with other people, everyone notices. And they're like, oh, I see you play. Are you playing the wrong way around? I'm like, yes.
The wrong way around. How do you feel about that description?
It's a shame with string instruments, because I've got a friend that's left-handed and plays cello, and they were like, told another hand, like, oh, this is so much easier. I wish I was allowed to do this at school, and would have struggled less with learning if they'd been able to do it the other way around, to play left-handed.
On a left-handed cello or on a right-handed cello?
Or just even backwards. I'm not sure. But they were like, oh, I wish I'd been able to hold the bow with my left hand and do it that way. It feels more natural.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Right, this drives me insane. Miley Cyrus, Billy Ray Cyrus, plays guitar left-handed and has left-handed guitars. And she wrote that as a child, her dad had trouble getting left-handed guitars, so he made her play right-handed, so it'd be easier to get guitars. And I find that so silly, because she writes with her right hand as well, even though she's naturally left-handed. But I'm like, historically, that is abuse, sort of child abuse, that they're making the go to school, you try and write with your left hand, they'll tie your right hand behind your back and force you to write with your right hand. So I don't like when people do that or are made to do that, because it's historically not a nice thing. It made it easier for me to see the high notes and tune them, because I could see where I'd made marks on the fingerboard. But it made it probably harder to be dexterous on the upper end for the high notes, because obviously you don't tend to need to play low down on the E string, but the G string is the one where you're going to play low down on most.
Just to be clear, when you say low down, you mean physically low down, not in terms of pitch.
Yes, sorry.
You mean like...
Yeah, down the bottom.
Yeah.
On guitar, when you're playing chords, it gives a bit of different sound because you're getting those high pitches first. But on bass, where you're not regularly strumming, and when you are strumming, it's not quite the same. I don't think if you learn that way, it's not actually very different. It's the playing on the body that's right-handed, or left-handed, that's for comfort and stuff. But actually, it doesn't feel wrong on a bass when you're pitsing or when you're playing bass guitar. When you're bowing, it absolutely does. I guess I have to think about what is that hard because I'm just not used to it. Or yeah, it's definitely harder to get more power on it. I think the German bow helped. I think a French bow would have made that even more difficult at that angle to get the power. I'm trying to think about the fingering of it. Yeah, it's if you're going low down, it feels like you can slip off more. Whereas when you're reaching there, you've got a bit more support because you've got your whole hand across it. Whereas there, yes, that makes sense. Yeah, whereas when you're on the E string without it, you've got less support. You not quite fall off, but you've not got your whole hand holding, bracing. Whereas when you're there, you've got your hand bracing against it. So you've got a bit more power and support to do it. Whereas there, you're sort of a little less comfortable. Not uncomfortable, because obviously you can play the G string like that, but for the thicker string, it's not quite as supported.
I know what you mean. It's not that you're going to fall off, but it's like you've got to really be accurate, precise with something that also requires a lot of strength. And sometimes they feel like contradictory goals, right? Like, okay, if I'm playing on a thin string, I want to be very precise and accurate and fluid. And when I'm playing on that thick string, I want power. I want it to sound good, and I want it really anchored. And having to do that while you're kind of walking the tightrope of the end of the fingerboard, that's a really interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, because that string, well, not necessarily most, but your low end, you're wanting a lot of on bass, and higher up you get, the more options you have. That you've only got there as an option.
Yeah.
So on the G string, if you found you're slipping, you could always be on the D. If you had thought that wasn't in a dexterous position, you could do it on the D string. You could do it on the E string really high. But when you're on the E string, you don't. Well, I do because I've got a 5 string. But on a 4 string bass, you don't have the option of playing elsewhere.
Yeah. Do you think there are ways that it affects your choices, your playing, the things that you tend to gravitate towards, the sound that you produce, those kinds of things?
I don't think on bass guitar. On double bass, I guess it's the trying to match a section. Certainly not when I'm on my own, when I'm pitsing. No, I don't think it does. On a right-handed instrument, again, as we're talking about lack of support and the E string, I guess I never played that. I never played it in a jazz style, that right-handed one, whereas played my left-handed ones. The only place I'd notice a difference is the orchestra trying to. If I picked up one now, I couldn't just mirror people like I'm now very used to. I'd have to give a lot more thought into how I move and play things, and even the written bowings ignore. From
the outside, it sounds like in a lot of the musical contexts that you find yourself in, rather than your left-handedness, let's say if you were a full-time improvising jazz double bassist and you played back to front as your main way of playing, there might be a conversation about like, how do you think your solos develop differently, or what kind of arpeggios do you think you do that other people don't do when they play with the conventional string order? But it sounds like a lot of these the same kinds of questions for you are related to actually trying to blend to create a harmonious blend with your section mates. Is that more or less the case?
That's an interesting point I hadn't considered. As I was thinking, I can't see any differences when you're playing electric or jazz bass, but actually no, now you say it, you've got your upper string. That's quite interesting. No, that's not something I've ever done much of, because I've only ever done written parts upside down, really.
Right. Yeah. So it's more those physical differences that we talked about
Yeah,
before, rather than like differences in language, or you're not making different choices. You're just trying to play the notes that are on the
yeah.
page and play
I'm trying to
them
blend in. Yeah,
beautifully. Yeah. Did you
yeah.
switch
So
to the German bow, sorry to interrupt, when you were still playing on a right-handed instrument?
yes, I switched
Okay.
quite after like a term, a few months of playing.
And did you feel like when you were playing with the French grip
Mm.
that bow, was it really kind of difficult to bow on the E string to get enough pressure?
Definitely, I found it lighter, and perhaps it is that getting that low E string is not as easy reaching over.
In my very limited experience, of which German bowing is actual zero, but it makes sense to me that doing this gives you a bit more strength than doing this
Yeah.
when you need it far away from for us, it's far away from our body, the E string,
Mm.
when
Yeah,
you're
well, I
playing
think that's
backwards.
but yeah, oh no, that's another interesting thing is I do have a quiver, but the quivers are made for right hand to be on the right hand side. So I have my quiver on backwards, so it's a bit hard to tighten because the buckle's on the wrong side of the tailpiece. They're clearly designed to be on the other way, so technically I don't think it's really got much pattern on the other side, but it is the wrong side of it showing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, do you think that they do make left-handed bow
No, I
quivers?
wouldn't surprise me if Tommen did. It would probably be if you got maybe a custom one, but I guess there's no one's really thought about it. It's like watch it. Well, you do get them. This is more common, but watches they don't really think about that if you're putting it on your right hand, the dials on the wrong ends. You do get them, but you get left-handed watches that are meant to go on your right arm, so you have the bits you turn on the outside. But they people don't think about that, like the Rolex and stuff. You know, big brand is they all put it like that, so they don't think about it. Even though a watch is much more common than a double bass being played left-handed. But yeah, I don't think they've really thought about it.
I've been researching this stuff on and off for 10 years, and I've never once thought about that thing with the watch, that it's for
Exactly.
you, it's going to be on the inside, right? If it's a right-handed
Yeah.
watch. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I did
Um,
used to get some left-handed watches so I could have the thing there, but I think I was just being for the sake of it, trying to, left-handed pride and all. Well, I like to be awkward. No, but I find it kind of makes me stand out in a not necessarily in a good way, but like I'm always slightly separate from the section. I'm a bit more used to playing alone, and I've learned woodwind instruments. This is a completely different family of instrument that I've never learned or had particular help with, so it kind of just further isolates me in that because I'm a sort of jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. It's in my I can pick up an instrument and go backwards. Not everyone can do that. It's my I might not be able to play as well, but I've got niche skills at learning the little backwards things and stuff like that.
it's truly remarkable that you had that experience where your electric bass stopped working and you were able to borrow a five-string left-handed electric bass from your colleague. That's incredible.
Yeah, no, I think he's probably the only one I really knew that did it left-handed. No, we didn't speak much. So there's no one I've ever really spoken to about it or that I've had experience it with me, other than my
Yeah.
friend that plays cello and wish they played it left-handed. I was interested because the original Latin meaning dexterous is a dexter is right hand side or right handed. So it's an interest that it's because sinister is the left. Obviously, dexterity has moved on as a word, but it's interesting that root of it is actually meaning right-handed, which I think it's like because we said about people saying I'm playing the wrong way around. It goes back into that because dexterous then means right-handed in the first place. That sort of all our language developed from that. What about
Hmm.
idiosinisterly? Um,
I love it.
Idiodextrous sounds much better.
I'm writing it down anyway because it's a nice idea. But actually, idiodexterity is not kind of necessarily linked to left-handedness. For
Mm,
example, I play the double bass. I'm left-handed on a right-handed double bass, but I'm
mm.
right-handed 100%. Like not even a little bit of I know. Can you continue this conversation now that you know that?
I feel like I've been betrayed. You've
I'm
been
so sorry. I should have probably put that up front. But so there's all
How
these
much of
different
your life have you dedicated to left-handed play?
10 years, oh, going on 10 years, yeah. But this is the thing, like of the people that I've interviewed that all play idiodextrously as their main way of playing, many of them are almost 100% right-handed. Not the
Oh,
majority, but many more than you would expect. I will be able to give you some statistics in about another 10 years when I've gathered enough data.
yeah,
Sounds nice.
mainly it's just upside down. Playing upside down is the main way I've had it described, or I've described it. I
Does that
think
ever
backwards I more say for how I have it now. Left-handed playing, left-handed up is backwards, whereas upside down kind of makes more sense for idiodextrous playing the right-handed instrument left-handed.
Right, because backwards doesn't necessarily talk about the strings. It can just be the mirror image thing that you're
Yeah,
playing
mirror
an
image is
instrument.
backwards. Yeah, whereas upside down feels a bit more. Well, if I put this upside down, it would be the same way as a right-handed instrument.
That makes a lot of sense. And has anyone ever either made the joke or been genuinely confused that when you say you play the bass upside down, they think that you hang from the ceiling like a bat and play?
I like that it brings people together over shared experiences, I guess. You know, you can join a completely new orchestra and if they play the same piece, you'll experience some of the same things. The shared inside jokes, I guess, of that. I like that it's supposedly creative, but it's if you're especially playing classically, it's got nice, very bounded in a way that you don't have to necessarily think and create. You can play along.
What about
I
all
don't know.
these instruments and like this matrix that we were talking about and this overview?
Mm.
Like, is there something that you like about music that compels you to want to explore all those different little corners of it and kind of piece it together like a puzzle?
I don't like to have any bit of it unknown. I like to fully experience. I don't want to sit there and not know how other sections are experiencing it.